Limitless Mindset. This is video number 2. The whole idea behind this series is to empower people and give them the ability to be fearless and to create a mindset that is completely limitless. So to recap video number 1, in the first video we talked about the principles that this methodology is based on. The 3 of them are, number 1, that our belief system creates our reality, that our perception creates our belief system, and then that one of the things that has a profound effect on our beliefs and our reality is new knowledge or information, which is knowledge again. So we also talked about the 3 different levels of knowledge. What we know that we don't know, and then the area where we are completely lost, the I don't know that I even don't know. And that's where a lot of blind spots lie within us as human beings. So I want to explore that area a little bit more today. In that realm of I don't know that I don't know, one of the things I want to talk about is time distortion. So what do I mean by that? An event happens. Over time, we keep thinking about that event. That event gets replayed in our head. Now, the greater the emotional attachment to an event, the stronger the memory. And if something happens and it's traumatic and it's replayed over and over within our mind, that event can actually have a much greater significance for us than when it was actually happening. The issue with emotions is that our brain does not distinguish the feeling of when something is happening versus when it's being recollected. Therefore, if we recollect a negative thought over and over, it can create a lot of problems within our mental modeling. I'll give you an example. So a child sees a snake. His or her mother screams. The child will have a memory of that snake in fear. Another child sees exactly the same snake. Now, his or her mother is a herpetologist. Now, that's a person who studies amphibians. So she picks up the snake and goes, wow, what a beautiful snake. Now, the model, the memory, and the event is going to have a completely different effect on that toddler. And over time, the toddler that experienced the animal or the snake being something really nice is going to think, well, this is fantastic. A snake is just a great animal that I want to be looking at, touching, or whatever it is. Whereas the other one, over time, could literally create phobia if that child plays that memory over and over and associates it with fear. Now, this happens every day. Then this is why people have phobias over snakes. Some people are terrified of birds. Some people, obviously, most of us are terrified of sharks because they're pretty terrifying, right? But some people are phobic about it. They can't even see a shark on TV. But what if it's not an animal? What if it's a relationship? Somebody went through a horrible relationship and now they're terrified to start up another relationship. Or something happened to their career and now they're afraid of taking steps towards advancement or whatever it is. Or what if somebody invested into some kind of a venture and that went really, really bad? Now they're going to be risk averse with investments if they keep replaying that memory over and over. Now, you see, you have to understand that people that have lost but then have not attached a very significant emotional attachment to it, they're just going to say, well, it's a loss, it's okay, I also had a lot of wins and I can keep going. That's not going to create a problem. However, if you're terrified to re-engage and you play that over and over, that is going to have a profound effect on you. Now, why do we even form these models? Well, very, very simple. They stem from a survival mechanism which let us learn what's good for us, what's bad for us, what we can trust, what we cannot trust, what we can eat, what we cannot eat. Now, it is an automatic and evolutionary system which contributed to our survival. However, it always needs to be questioned because it is involuntary and it is very primitive. I'm sure you heard the expression that events of the past can contribute to depression, whereas worrying about the future can cause anxiety. Now, why would we be depressed about the past? Well, that will only happen if we're thinking and recollecting undesirable results of the past. Again, by thinking about those bad memories over and over, we can form certain behaviors, habits, and traits which will manifest right here in our present. Again, it is very important to really understand how the events of the past can have an undesirable effect on our present and in turn in our future. And this resides in that region of I don't know, which I don't know. Some of the events of the past can potentially create prejudice, cynicism, distrust, risk aversion in others. This can have dire consequences on our careers, how we form relationships, our feelings about love, happiness, fulfillment, and our entire life in general. So why would we be worried and be anxious about the future? A future that hasn't even happened yet. The answer is simple. Fear of the unknown. As human beings have evolved, we live in a world of uncertainty. Human beings fear the unknown, the unpredictable, which causes anxiety. Furthermore, uncertainty coupled with worry about repeating the mistakes of the past can further add to our stress. It is unfortunate, however, that we are more likely to repeat a bad pattern than choosing an unknown future. This creates what I call a vicious cycle. It is why sometimes we repeat the same pattern, the same life behavior over and over, because it is familiar and not necessarily because it is beneficial. It can be detrimental to us, but it is, however, less scary than the unknown. And this can sometimes produce really very undesirable effects, like choosing abusive partners over and over, demanding bosses, destructive friends, and others. So the next thing I want to talk about is how our perception or the processing or perception can be distorted depending on our past. So I want you to look at the model behind me and you see an apple, but I don't want you to think of that as an apple. I want you to think of it as any object or any event in somebody's life. One person experiences an event or sees an object, and due to the fact that they were raised a certain way, they had a certain education, they had certain values, they're going to see that as something completely different as others. So an object, think of as of a crucifix. If one person sees a crucifix and they were raised in a Catholic religion, they're going to see it slightly different than somebody who is not familiar with the Catholic religion, for example. Think of an event. Somebody who has been picked on, and let's say he had a couple of events in their life where kids didn't want to play with him and they told him to go away. Now they're at a party and they're enjoying it, and somebody comes over and says, hey, go away, and they're completely joking. The person with the bad past, with the bad events, could actually be really offended, or they could get really hurt and they don't even know why. And this is why, again, we have to understand how profound the events of the past and our mental modeling and what happens in our brain can have on our present and then even the future, right? Believe it or not, neuroscientists have discovered that people who are bilingual think slightly different than people who are just monolingual. That means people that speak several languages have a slightly different way of processing information than somebody who has who's familiar with one language. If you look at cultural differences, if you take somebody who was raised in North America, if you talk about honesty and dishonesty, and you talk about their dishonesty, and then you talk about the dishonesty of people close to them, even their parents, their way of thinking, their brain activity is going to be completely different. However, you have the same topic about honesty and dishonesty with a person who was raised in China in a completely different culture. If you talk about their dishonesty, and if you talk about the dishonesty of their parent, their brain activity is almost identical. Therefore, our past, our culture, our education, our standards, beliefs have a profound effect on our perception and how we process life in general. So I'm starting to get really excited. We're getting to the good stuff. So if our entire reality is based on our belief system, our mental models, and our perception builds those beliefs and mental models, but then the beliefs and mental models affect our perception and in turn our reality, knowing all of that, Is your glass half full or half empty? Are you a success or a failure? Are you happy or unhappy? Another question is, how do you even define happiness or success? If your reality is a construct, I'm not saying you, I'm saying anyone, if anybody's reality is a construct and it needs to be questioned, then who decides on the questions and the answers? Now, numerous cognitive neuroscientists have conducted studies that have revealed that only 5% of our cognitive activities, which is decision making, emotions, actions, behaviors, is done on a conscious level, meaning that 95% is generated in a non-conscious manner. That means that 95% of our reality is running on an automatic system, and we're only consciously controlling the 5%. I'm going to conclude here. However, I want to leave you with a thought. I want you to think about your past. I want you to think about your mental models. I want you to think about your beliefs and if they can have any negative limiting effects on your present and potentially the future. Thank you very much for joining me for another Limitless video. Please share this information with your friends. If you can do anything for me, please share this with as many people as you can, because I truly believe that this information is going to make a difference in many people's lives. I know, like I said, it has made a difference in my life already, and it has made a lot of differences for people that I have been working with. On the next video, we're actually going to be exploring the tools and habits that we can form to become limitless. So we're going to tap into that 95% of our programming that is on a subconscious level and see how we can actually affect it and reprogram it. Again, thank you and watch the next video, video number 3, Limitless Mindset.